Welcome back to another Let's Play and Chill. We're going to continue our discussions with and about Chester A. Arthur. We're going to continue to see what's going on with this. Do I have ammo? I don't have ammo. I should probably get some. Okay. I truly love this game, guys. If you have not played this game, I would highly recommend it. Just as a word to the wise, this is just this one in particular is just one that always just seems to brighten up my day. It's one of the funnest games. It finds a really good balance, I think, because subsequent sequels, mainly like Up Your Arsenal is a really fun game, but they do a lot of very different things than I think most of us would be very. It's not a bad game. It's just different. You know, when games and movies or shows try to do just things differently, it's a very mixed results. That is quite literally Up Your Arsenal. A very fun and very good game that tries to do too much, and especially since I started replaying it again, or I did before, it certainly is really hit or miss depending on how you want to look at it. It's going to take forever to upgrade these. Okay. Right now, we're just gonna try to get a couple more crystals. Actually, I don't think we can yet. Okay. We'll come back. Anyways, I think last time I left off was Chester A. Arthur being a New Yorker. Understand that, he's basically kind of growing up during the Martin Van Buren time as president. Let's see if we can do this right. So New York's a very weird place during this particular time. Again, it was dominated by both Democrat, but then slowly kind of becoming a Republican in a lot of ways, just because of the anti-slavery or the movements. And I think also because, it was just North and South for the most part, but Republicans had started gaining momentum around this particular point in time, or Whigs at the time, technically, because Republicans weren't a party yet. But they started gaining some steam. But Democrats were always pretty strong in New York to a certain degree. It just depends on how you want to look at it and parse it. They would have like Democrat governors left and right there that would be leading, and I think it was just more of the old guard Democrat governors, kind of. Sweet, first try. Trying to upgrade these freaking crap. And again, most people understand or following in their families' footsteps generally in terms of their political ideologies and what they grow up with. It makes sense. It's not like, it's usually pretty rare when families disagree on things in terms of their upbringing, unless it's things like this where they would be very anti-slave. Like, if you're gonna see some divide, it's gonna be during this particular point in time. But with Chester and his family, he's a Whig through and through growing up, and for most of his early upbringing, that's just how he grew up, and, well, yeah. Now, like I said before, his law practice, it's all over the place. He's trying to do a bunch of different things. Goes to Kansas, during Bleeding Kansas, mind you. Attempts to set up shop there and a practice there, along with various other individuals around that particular point in time. Oh, I'm so close. I want that armor. I'm gonna be freaking indestructible. But also around this time is a little thing called the Civil War, which leads to him actually... dang it. Him actually participating within the actual war effort itself. He ends up becoming... I don't know if he's actually drafted or anything, but I think he's conscripted to go and participate in said war effort. I forgot which particular division. I'm gonna guess probably somewhere in the northeast, probably closer to Virginia, around that particular area. And he ends up becoming a prominent, I guess, individual / leader there. Just depends on how you want to look at it. I think he ends up becoming like a brigadier general, but is basically just a quartermaster the entire time. Making sure people are well stocked in weapons. It doesn't do much. It's more of just a particular position that he was kind of just given, really more than anything else. Just like a lot of these, guys. It's kind of just, I don't know. Just, it's not like a lot of them are actually like charging headfirst into battle, fighting left and right. Again, just depends on how you want to look at it, but he himself actually doesn't do any fighting. In fact, he ends up actually leaving the war halfway through, quite literally because of politics, which I find hilarious. I think it was mainly because he was given that particular position by a Republican governor, and then midterm elections happen, I think, or the gubernatorial elections happen in New York, and I think who won it? I know it was a guy who ran for president at one point. I think it was it Seymour? I think it was Horatio Seymour who ends up becoming the next governor of New York, ends up winning it. Basically just takes him out. He's like, nah, yeah, you're done. You're not doing this. And in which case, just say Arthur lives his life for the most part. After that, it's like, okay, I guess I'm done. He does go through some tragedy. I know one of his kids ends up dying around this particular point in time while he's trying to build up his political career, his political resume. Tries to get into New York politics on the Republican side, which leads to mixed results. New York's a very, very wildly different state than most states. I mean, people should just do an episode on New York politics, because it is very, very fascinating. I mean, at this point, New York's probably one of the most powerful states within the nation, too, mind you. I mean, they held most trade, most immigration. I mean, you know, Virginia's no longer the top dog state, unfortunately, for all intents and purposes. Not to say Virginia isn't a strong state, mind you. Again, just the realities of what it was back then and what it was like. You know, you're gonna find varying differences in I don't know. But it's around this particular point in time that New York becomes like the big juggernaut of all states for the entirety of the country. And Democrats had a large majority and a large, strong support that is kind of incalculable around this particular point in time. Democrats are smart. You know, they're politically biased and whatnot. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. One more. This is nonsense, people. Now I just needed one more. Then I gotta go back to another planet just to put it together, and then... this is just tedious. But basically he just goes, does his thing, becomes a lawyer again, tries to get into New York politics, gets in well with a lot of the political establishment. It's around this time he really builds who he is, because eventually he will get positions because of his time in Congress, or not in Congress, but because of his time at this point where he starts making connections. He's like, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, you know. He's getting in with a lot of people. It's a very, very important time. You gonna break through, or what? It's a very important time in his life that allows him to create the ability where he eventually will become the president of the United States. Oh, you did it? Let's see how many I can get. And at this point too, I should also note, this is when the handlebar mustache really comes out. Starts looking pretty fresh, not gonna lie. Mutton chops coming in. I mean, he's looking sweet, put it that way. He's got the look down. Can't keep the ladies off of him too long. Although his wife's probably not too happy about it, because he's looking too hot, you know. But I think what really helps him is he ends up siding with a lot of the future political figures around that particular point in time that have quite a bit of power. Again, pretty obvious at this point, he is a Republican. I think, he really aligns himself with a lot of different parts of the Republican Party. Because he's friendly with the half-breeds, the stalwarts, and yes, there even is a conservative coalition that is pretty prominent in New York, led by Thurlow Weed, I believe, a prominent Republican politician at this particular point in time. I mean, he's in it all, really. I mean, he's with everyone, which is why I'm always saying, like, this guy's kind of the guy. And just like with a bunch of different political machines, he's within one of the big ones. I forgot the first name. Is it Ross Conkling? But he's within the Conkling political machine, which got a bunch of different people within higher positions of power, and led to, let's just say, a lot of change within New York politics. He's a part of that political machine. Come on. Okay. Let's not die. And I failed. But anyways, understand too that a lot of these appointments, a lot of these positions in particular power are they're appointment based. So if you wanted to really be in on the political machine, if you really wanted to be in on just
all right, I've I've got an illusion of some moonstones. I'll trade it for a vision of that hypnomatic part.
You have learned much, young one. Now bring me more moonstones, and riches shall be your reward.
Riches. Oh, I can get 400,000. I am a millionaire once again, people. Whew. Okay. But understand that most places, especially when it comes to certain political appointments, they were quite literally, well, political appointments. They were going to be given to people who kind of got into things and got in with the right individuals, and Chester Arthur is quite literally one of these individuals where he ends up basically just kind of being a guy. He ends up getting an appointment within the U.S. Customs House around... I know Abraham Lincoln is assassinated at this point, but he ends up effectively... Oh, hang on. Where am I supposed to be going? I gotta get the hypnotic... Oh, yeah. Isn't there a taxi here? Yes, there is. There is a taxi here. Okay. But again, he gets into all the clubs. He gets into all the different places. Conkling continues his ascension. He gets all of his people in the right spots and positions of power. You know, and it sounds bad, but think about, like, you know, when Stalin took power in Russia.
Do not even think about it.
Yep. Because, you know, for those of you who don't know, they bewilderingly gave Stalin a particular position, which allowed him to put all of his own people in particular spots of power. I'm not going to make it, am I? Oh, just in time. In particular spots of power over... what's his name? Guy with the glasses. See, I'm terrible with names, people. I can't think of the name. Trotsky. Because once he has his stroke, it's basically just a free for all of who can actually get it. And the brainchild of that communist revolution in Russia was Trotsky in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, Stalin had all the power, he had all the support, and that was primarily because he's like, hey, you gave me the position to put all these people in power, I'm gonna use it and put all my homies in power. Kind of the same thing with Mr. Weed himself. And it's basically him, his creation, well, because it's basically the Conkling machine, and then it's the, what's the Democratic one? Tammany Hall, that effectively held a lot of power for both Republicans and Democrats, respectively, and specifically in New York. So once they end up, okay, now I just gotta jump up. Get out of here with that, fam. Oh, this is not good. Took his hand to me. I don't think I'm gonna make it. Oh, you gotta be... Okay, that was just dumb of me. I got overzealous there, people. Come on. There we go. But basically, that's effectively what's happening in New York politics to a certain degree. You know, I deserve that. Come on. I'm just gonna fill up with water. Okay, there we go. You know, he becomes a very prominent figure within this time, Mr. Chester A. Arthur himself. Should probably get back to him. Gets a lot of positions. He's on like state legislative committees. He's doing everything he can. His wife's pissed. He's never home. Especially after losing a child, it's probably not the most conducive thing for your marriage. Let's just put it that way. Very politely. Here we go.
Hey, nice digs.
Yeah. It's a little remnant from my previous life.
You were reincarnated?
No. My Megacorp days. They've got a very generous bonus package.
Right. So now that you've got your ID badge, how do we take out the protopet?
Watch this.
Mommy, where do protopets come from?
Why, they come from Megacorp, dear.
That's right, Mrs. Robot. All of the protopets in the galaxy come from right here, in our factory. Your little friend is lovingly extracted from the original protopet. Each protopet is given a name and birth certificate that is unique. Our training system helps mold your pet into a wonderful friend that you'll cherish forever. So the next time your child asks,
Mommy, where do protopets come from?
you can answer with confidence. They come from Megacorp.
That factory is
But
using
what
the
my
original
point was
prototype
with
to
between
produce all
the
the
Conkling
others.
machine and the Tammany Hall machine, though, ultimately was
Take out the original protopet.
it was basically Republicans and Democrats fighting for the state of New York.
20% off a complete service at Groot
And for the Republicans post Andrew Johnson's presidency, ultimately ended up gaining a lot of power and influence during that particular point in
Sure
time.
you want to split up?
At least in the federal part of it, state legislature and all that, they would lose a lot of seats, a lot of value, as the political machine, hypothetically, in New York, that Chester Arthur actually loses his particular position at a certain point. I don't really need Raritanium. I'm just gonna use this to go away, because I want to continue the story, because I think we are almost done, people. Leave me alone. Stranger danger. And again, understand too, around this particular point in time, he's making a lot of money doing this. Oh, is this the last level? I forgot. Dang. Okay. Forgot. This might be one of the, if not the last level. Just letting you guys know that. I knew we were near the end. I just forgot how close we actually were. But long story short, with Chester A. Arthur, he either won his positions or lost his positions, depending on politics, basically. So, like, if he was gonna win and get up and be a part of the actual state legislature, whatnot, it was gonna be because excuse me, I just had breakfast, people. Was going to be because of, in particular, just general appointments based off of just voting, which makes a lot of sense. This is not good. Now I got hiccups. This is just going to be annoying now. Very unprofessional of me. That's not to say that Chester A. Arthur, despite having all of his power, his positions, that he wasn't like an uncontroversial individual. There was a bunch of magazines kind of noting how he had literally just like kind of rose up out of nowhere to become this low-key juggernaut in not just New York politics, but politics in general. And people were very wary of him from the get-go, to be brutally honest. Again, they're not saying he's like a bad guy. They're just pointing out, like, this guy who's literally never held actual office before, he's pretty prominent in all these, and he's kind of in with all these different individuals and people. It's kind of strange, isn't it? Like, people were just connecting dots, and we're just like, okay. Now, that being said, he didn't agree with everyone or get along with just about everyone. Especially once he held the, and was confirmed during the Grant presidency to be a part of and in charge of the U.S. New York Customs House, which I always know that he only had a modest salary of like $6,500 to $10,000 a year, and yet, you know, he never took any bribes, yada yada, but he ended up having like all this lavish stuff. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I would argue I shouldn't have done that. Crap. But I would argue personally that like, when I mean a little bit more complicated than that, he basically had the ability to seize what he constituted as contraband, I believe. Crap. So dumb. Well, just let me just use my weapons and do this part. But he had the ability to seize what constitutes as contraband, which can be a number of different things, to be honest with you. Oh, these Chinese goods? Seems to have the improper codes on them, so I'm just gonna take them home, you know, and do what I want with them. You know, a little bit like that. Again, a lot more complicated than that, but he did absolutely get a certain number of kickbacks that most people would probably say and constitute as not on the up and up. Can I make it? Can I make it? Yes. Nope. Didn't make it. It's back here. I'm a silly boy. But he was part of the New York City collector thing. Does that for at least the next 5-6 years. Makes a lot of money doing that, mind you. He and Rutherford B. Hayes do not get along for a lot of reasons, but primarily the biggest one is just the fact that Hayes is trying to clean up this whole patronage system that's kind of permeated throughout the federal government, caused by Republicans, mind you, that is not particularly good. And I'll be fair to Republicans, they're trying to fix a problem that they did create that is an actual real issue, and they saw this as a real problem. Partially, one reason I think is because of the fact that I think they got overzealous in thinking that they were the guys, the party people, and kind of came to the realization that, you know, there's going to be a day where they lose an election, and probably shouldn't just rely on the fact that they were the anti-slavery party, that they saved the Union. It's like, okay, you saved the Union, but now you kind of have to still run the country. You still have to actually fix a bunch of the problems that are actual problems here, and you gotta start somewhere. Crap, I'm running out of ammo. This is not good. Hang on 1 second. I gotta message someone. Oh. Use. Lord. Oh crap, I'm gonna die now. Can I get that armor upgrade? Oh well, if I die, I die. I made my bed. Ah. You know what? I saw that and I still went for it. At least that's upgraded. Okay. See, some positive signs, people. Some positive signs. Now, I mean it when I say that Chester Arthur, I mean, he did have enemies. Notably was pretty much anyone that was a part of the wanting to clean up this entire patronage system, because he was the one that ultimately ended up getting screwed over the most by it, to be honest with you. So much so that it actually has to go to an actual federal vote whether or not he's actually going to be able to keep his job, or whether or not he deserved it, which it was very contentious. Let's say a bunch of backroom deals happened, but ultimately he does end up keeping his job, again, because he made friends with all the right people, and oh Lord, really need to refocus, because they're not giving me any health, and I really need to not keep doing this part over and over and over again. Lord, stop showing up. And this is one of the hardest parts of this game, and not because of the difficulty of the enemies, it's just more so the volume of them, like, which is my biggest problem, because like all my best guns unfortunately are just out of ammo, and really wishing I got that second rhino. Maybe I can go back to that planet and get another rhino. I don't know, we'll see. Thankfully for Arthur, his star continues to shine, and he gets more appointments, ends up becoming the chair of the Republican Executive Committee at that point too. I am talking about, this guy is just everywhere. I don't even know a good equivalency to the kind of individual he is, to be honest with you, in today's political atmosphere. He's just someone who's always around and just made friends with all the right people, and then eventually becomes vice president, but never really holds any political office. I don't know. I don't know a good equivalency, to be honest. Come on. There we go. Like, I don't think there's really anyone quite like Chester A. Arthur, to be honest with you. But near the end of Rutherford B. Hayes' presidency, he ends up, unfortunately his wife passes away. He's one of the few that, while in political office, is a bachelor, technically. Although I'm pretty sure he's pretty much the only one that was considered a bachelor that actually was married and had children. Ugh, Lord, just kill me. Oh, I'm out of this too? Ugh. Please tell me I'm gonna be getting a ammo box of all my guns at a certain point. Ugh, this is just not working out. Any good guns here? No. Are they all dead? Did I do it? I think I did it. Okay. Of course. There we go. Yeah, you're probably wondering, asking yourself, how did this man become the President of the United States? But, again, understand how powerful political machines can be. They can be overwhelmingly powerful. No greater example than the New York political machine. Come on. Explode! There we go. But let me just detail a little bit. I mean, he ends up retaining his position, becomes even more prominent within New York politics, etc., etc. I really should have put more emphasis in trying to upgrade these guns. Focus. There. We're good. Beautiful. First time. Oh, crap. And what the hell? So much simpler. Basically, from 1875, I would say, to 1880, I mean, he is just doing everything he can to build up his, I guess you could say, political profile. Doing so successfully, I might add. He tries to be on every committee, tries to do everything, and this leads to, you know, let's just say some unique things for him, where he is, how do I even put it? Because of who he is, because of how he gets to the positions that he ultimately ends up getting, he puts himself into prominent positions where he's ultimately going to end up basically being the vice presidential nominee, if that makes any sense.
Remember, you bought it from Steve. Steve McQuark.
And I don't even think he in particular wanted to be the vice presidential nominee. I think he would, if anything, he was going to be wanting to be the president, but he didn't have that much political power. He still did have enough, though. But again, continues to be prominent, continues to build himself up, to the point that by the election of 1880 for James A. Garfield, he ends up having a lot of influence ultimately in who's going to end up being the actual presidential nominee. I think Garfield and his group wanted another candidate. In particular, it was this guy, Levi Morton, again one of the guys who was a part of the Conkling machine, and it was always going to be a close election, so they wanted the best possible candidate, but this ultimately led to contentious election because James A. Garfield, also another one of these prominent individuals who's building up his political resume, ends up being pretty much the leading and favorite choice. But
Your darkest of hours.
the Kong thing machine was very strong, so they were like, look, if you want to have Garfield as president, that's fine, but we're going to have one of our guys be the vice president. And Garfield ultimately kind of just becomes the choice. Pretty much just, you know, to be the guy. It also helps because of that as well. Because one of their guys gets it. New York goes back to being a red state and Republican state, and ultimately it becomes, Garfield becomes the president, and then Chester Arthur becomes the vice president in a very contentious but relatively definitive election where James A. Garfield wins.
Once and for all.
That's my Elixamorph. I invented.
Ahem. Stay tuned, dear viewers, as I amplify the signal from this helixo thingy and render every protopet in the galaxy completely harmless. Allow me to demonstrate.
Now, Garfield and Arthur did not get along at all. I think that's pretty clear to say. They just didn't really like each other. I think it was really just a battle of politics. Like, I think a good example in today's day and age, for those of you who do follow politics, at least relatively speaking, pretty closely, I attribute it to more like the different sects of like Democrats today, because like there's like how do I even put it? You have like a Joe Biden wing, and then you have like a Nancy Pelosi wing, and then you have like the Willie Brown ring. Like it's all a part of the same political machine in a lot of ways, in a lot of instances, but ultimately it just depends on who's in power and whose guy is going to be in power and whose guy isn't going to be in power. Now, without this Rhino, this boss fight's very difficult, but done. That's how you do it.
You did it.
You know what I'm saying? That's why this upcoming presidential election is very interesting and going to be very contentious, because, you know, if Joe Biden does step down, you know, who's the next guy and who's the next nominee, hypothetically, which makes it even more difficult because they have to give back all the money that's donated to Joe Biden. Can't go straight to Kamala without like the 25th Amendment, and a whole bunch of different things actually have to happen. But even then, that's not going to happen. Point being,
The battery isn't backwards.
there's different branches within the specific government that are very, 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 very contentious within like the Democratic Party. Those three different sects are a part of the same party, but they have very different beliefs and very different loyalties, is probably the best way I could put it, towards one another. In particular, it's just like, think of James A. Garfield as like the Joe Biden wing, Obama wing, and think of, you know, Garfield as like the Kamala Harris kind of wing. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's happening right now, or that's what was happening back then between the Republicans ultimately. Now, when Garfield gets shot, and it was really unsure whether or not he was gonna die, there was some contention within Congress again, because they're like, well, we did have Tyler fill the vacancy, but you know, that was one aspect of it, but it wasn't like set in stone until I think the next amendment, or one of the next amendments during the 1950s, that actually put forth the actual presidential succession within the actual Constitution. It's difficult to actually really explain, but there was some contention whether Garfield was going to be the next president, whether he he could. And I think a lot of people didn't like Garfield again, just not a very popular individual. And ultimately, when Garfield does pass away, Chester Arthur becomes president just by virtue of just him being the vice president, despite a lot of pushback within Congress.
you boys should sign up for the new
Now, since this game's pretty much over, and I just kind of want to get Garfield done, or not Garfield, Arthur done, I'm just gonna go pretty quickly into his presidency. He pushed forth pretty much 2 or 3 things. It was the first one was trying to fix tariffs and reform the entire tariff system, because I think it was pretty much just trying to fix the government at this point that ultimately that they tried to push for, while also giving back a lot of these ideas of patronage, yada yada yada. Because they were increasing spending because of the federal government, because that's all they freaking do. So they're trying to raise money through tariffs, which they did to a certain degree successfully, trying to fix the patronage system to Arthur and the Republicans' benefit. And really, immigration was a big thing at this point because a lot of people are coming to the country, particularly from Asia, which creates the Chinese Exclusion Act that Arthur does sign into law sometime in 1882, 1883. People always point out that the Navy gets their resurgence, which they do. Builds a bunch of battleships that I think do end up becoming a part of the Spanish-American War at some point, or it's either him or Benjamin Harrison, one of those two, that ends up building a bunch of battleships and producing a lot more naval capacity for us at that particular point in time. There's also the issue of civil rights, which again becomes a contentious issue in the South. I think previously they had attempted to put forth some civil rights acts before, obviously well before 1964, but ultimately doesn't actually get followed through, which creates a lot of dysfunction. And then more issues with Native Americans because they continue to be pushed out west, with Western migration, things that will become like the Oregon Trail and stuff, continue to happen during this particular point in time, and particularly like the Dakotas, Utah's gonna be founded. Excuse me. A whole slew of states on the West Coast are gonna be founded and happen.
All right, fellas.
Oh, poor Quark. He also does not live very long post-presidency. Again, because 1984 presidential election. Unfortunately, he loses a lot of power, a lot of influence, and ultimately ends up not even becoming close to the nomination. I think it was like James G. Blaine wins the nomination, going against Grover Cleveland, and like Arthur got maybe 1/4 of the votes, which just shows you, how far he had fallen. Basically leaves office and then dies like a year or two after. He was always in poor health for a long period of near the end of his life. Along with Polk, ends up living probably some of the shortest post-presidencies of any president. Ultimately, one who just, the way people remember him, I think even today, I think he's probably one of the more properly rated presidents, where it's like, yeah, he was probably a little unspectacular, pretty much just didn't have a lot of restraints, not the best guy, and ultimately led to a lot of issues that would permeate most of his presidency. Not a bad man, but ultimately one who sought political power, and one that, his life and legacy are not going to be looked on very fondly. I'll put it that way. I'll probably finish up on Arthur and then continue on to Mr. Grover Cleveland. But thank you guys for watching this Let's Play. God bless y'all. If y'all like and subscribe, I'll keep telling more about history. And y'all rock. Have a great day.
Right. I think that was...